18 oldest black actors who are over 70 to 100 years old, 2026. What if I told you one of these men got his first Oscar nomination at 73? For a film that just broke a record standing since 1939. That another received his Walk of Fame star on his 83rd birthday. Sitting in a walker beside the brass, surrounded by men he shared a Broadway stage with 55 years ago. One survived a robbery shooting. One woke from a coma told he'd never walk again. One beat cancer last November. And one told the world just 2 weeks ago what he'd been quietly carrying for years. 18 men, aged 71 to 89. Everyone still here. Stay to the end. Subscribe to Secret Celebrity Stories, where legends get their flowers while they can still smell them. Morgan Freeman. That voice arrives before the man does. Low, unhurried, weathered into authority itself. But here's what almost nobody realizes about Morgan Freeman. He wasn't a movie star until nearly 50. Born June 1, 1937 in Memphis, and raised in Jim Crow, Mississippi, he turned down a partial drama scholarship to serve 4 years in the U.S. Air Force as a radar technician, convinced he wanted to fly, then discovering he didn't. Acting was never handed to him. He chased it through small stages, off-Broadway rooms, and a children's program called The Electric Company, where he played easy reader and taught a generation of kids to read. His breakthrough landed in 1987 with Street Smart, earning a first Oscar nomination at 50. Then the floodgates, Driving Miss Daisy in 1989 and The Shawshank Redemption in 1994, a film that flopped in theaters and became immortal anyway, carried substantially by his narration as read. His Academy Award came in 2005 for $1 Million Baby. He was Lucius Fox across Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy and returned to the Now You See Me franchise in its 2025 third installment. In 2008, a catastrophic car accident left his left hand partially paralyzed. He wears a compression glove and has spoken publicly about living with fibromyalgia and chronic pain. And still, at 89, he works, narrating, producing, appearing. His endurance isn't a mystery of genetics. It's simply a man who arrived late, understood exactly how long the road had been, and decided he wasn't finished walking it. He is the only person here who already has his Academy Award, and he waited until 67 to get it. Every actor who thinks they're running out of time should sit with that number. Samuel L. Jackson. If Freeman is the still water, Samuel L. Jackson is the storm front, and the numbers are almost absurd. Across more than 150 films, the movies he's appeared in have grossed over $27 billion worldwide, placing him among the highest-grossing actors in cinema history by cumulative box office. Born December 21, 1948 in Washington, D.C., and raised by his mother in segregated Chattanooga, he grew up with a severe stutter he still manages, and famously found that certain explosive words unlock his fluency on camera. At Morehouse College, he was briefly expelled in 1969 after a civil rights protest in which students held board members on campus. He later moved through the Black Power movement before theater found him, switching his major from marine biology to drama. Then came the years almost nobody saw. For a long stretch, Jackson battled severe cocaine and alcohol addiction, and it ended in 1991 when his wife LaTanya Richardson found him unconscious on their kitchen floor. 2 weeks out of rehab, he filmed Spike Lee's Jungle Fever as the addict Gator Purify, a performance so raw that Cannes created a Supporting Actor Award specifically for him. In 1994, Pulp Fiction handed him permanent immortality. He became Mace Windu, the voice of Frozone, and Nick Fury across more than a dozen Marvel films. The Academy gave him an honorary Oscar in 2022. He became a citizen of Gabon in 2019, after DNA testing traced his Benga ancestry. At 77, he still works at a pace that exhausts actors half his age, the loudest man in any room, built entirely on the quietest kind of second chance. Everything you love about him exists because someone came home at the right hour. Danny Glover. He said the line in 1987 that he was getting too old for this. And the world laughed, because Danny Glover was 40. 4 decades later, the joke has become far more tender. Born July 22, 1946, in San Francisco to postal workers active in the NACUP, he turns 80 in days. He battled epilepsy through childhood and a dyslexia undiagnosed until his 30s. Before acting, he spent 5 years with San Francisco's Model Cities program, helping low-income communities, training at the American Conservatory Theater's Black Actors Workshop at night. His debut came in 1979's Escape from Alcatraz, but 1985 detonated everything. 3 Best Picture nominees in 1 year: Witness, Silverado, and Spielberg's The Color Purple. Then Lethal Weapon in 1987 built a 4-film franchise grossing near $1 billion. He never let that define him. An Independent Spirit Award for To Sleep with Anger, then Beloved and the Royal Tenenbaums. Off-screen, he was relentless. UNICEF ambassador, anti-apartheid organizer, co-founder of the Pan-African Film Festival, and the Academy gave him its Jean Hersholt Humanitarian Award in 2022. In April 2026, a false report of his death circulated online. His representatives confirmed within a day it was a hoax. Then, on July 1, 2026, Glover told the truth himself. Speaking on NBC's Today, he revealed he has been living with Alzheimer's disease for several years. He said it plainly, on his own terms, at 79. No leak, no tabloid, no forced statement. A man who spent 50 years telling other people's difficult truths on screen decided to tell his own the same way. That is exactly the courage his whole life has been made of. Billy D. Williams. Some actors play characters. Billy D. Williams invented a register of cool Hollywood had never permitted a black leading man, and at 89, he still carries it into every room. Born William December Williams Jr. on April 6, 1937 in Harlem. Yes, December really is his middle name. He was raised largely by his grandmother, while his West Indian mother and African-American father worked multiple jobs. He made his Broadway debut at 7, in 1945's The Firebrand of Florence, and later attended the High School of Music and Art, alongside a classmate named Diane Carroll. Most of the world knows him as Lando Calrissian, originated in The Empire Strikes Back in 1980, and reprised in 2019's The Rise of Skywalker, a gap of nearly 4 decades, a record for the longest interval between live-action portrayals of one character by the same actor. But his romantic work made him a legend. Ryan's Song in 1971, playing Bears star Gale Sayers opposite James Caan, became one of the highest-rated TV movies ever and earned an Emmy nomination. Then Lady Sings the Blues in 1972 and Mahogany in 1975, both opposite Diana Ross, a chemistry so potent it sold millions of tickets. He also played Harvey Dent in Tim Burton's 1989 Batman. What most people never learn is that he's a serious painter whose canvases hang in galleries and sell for tens of thousands. His memoir arrived in 2024. Cool, it turns out, doesn't expire. Nearly 8 decades after a 7-year-old walked onto a Broadway stage, he is still signing his name and still the smoothest man in whatever room he enters. Very few careers last a decade. His has lasted a lifetime, and it isn't finished. Delroy Lindo. For 50 years, he was the finest actor the Academy never called. And then, at 73, the phone finally rang. Delroy George Lindo was born November 18, 1952, in Lewisham, London, the son of Jamaican immigrants. His father worked in a hospital. His mother was a nurse. The family moved to Toronto in his teens before he settled in America. His 1988 Broadway performance in August Wilson's Joe Turner's Come and Gone earned a Tony nomination. But Spike Lee unlocked him on screen, casting him as West Indian Archie in Malcolm X, Woody Carmichael in Crooklyn, and Rodney Little in Clockers. 3 films, 3 unrecognizable men. Get Shorty made him mainstream in 1995. The Good Fight kept him essential through 2021. Then Da 5 Bloods arrived in 2020, and his monologue delivered straight into the camera was hailed as one of the decade's greatest acting moments, winning New York Film Critics Circle and National Society of Film Critics awards. The Academy ignored it entirely, and he has said plainly he was profoundly disappointed. Then came Ryan Coogler's Sinners in 2025, where he played the blues musician Delta Slim. And on January 22, 2026, Delroy Lindo received his first Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor. Sinners took 16 nominations in total, the most any film has ever received in Oscar history. His son called from Europe to tell him he was still half asleep in bed. He described the moment as joyful and affirming, and then said, characteristically, that he was hesitant to live inside it too long because his intention is simply to keep working. Denzel Washington has publicly called him one of the finest actors he's ever known. 50 years, 1 nomination. He is not done. Ernie Hudson. Some actors get one shot. Ernie Hudson got several. And at 80, he's in a renaissance that would make actors half his age envious. Born Ernest Lee Hudson on December 17, 1945, in Benton Harbor, Michigan, he never knew his father, and his unwed mother died of tuberculosis when he was 3 months old, leaving his grandmother to raise him. He sang in the Pentecostal church choir and became the only person in his family to finish high school. He enlisted in the Marines after graduation and was discharged within 3 months for chronic asthma. He married at 18, became a father almost immediately, and then did something remarkable. Put himself through Wayne State University and earned a Master of Fine Arts from the Yale School of Drama. He became resident playwright at Concept East, the oldest black theater in the country. His breakthrough came in 1984 as Winston Zeddemore in Ghostbusters, a role written far larger for Eddie Murphy, then scaled back when Murphy passed. Hudson made every remaining second land. He returned for Ghostbusters 2, Afterlife, and 2024's Frozen Empire, making him the only African-American actor to appear across all 5 live-action Ghostbusters films. His resume now spans over 200 projects. Sergeant Albrecht in The Crow, Warden Leo Glynn across HBO's Oz, and recurring work on Grace and Frankie and Quantum Leap. His stated longevity formula is unglamorous and entirely his own. Daily push-ups, Pilates, and touching his toes every single morning. A boy whose mother died before he could know her, handed the smallest part in the biggest movie of 1984, and who simply refused, for 40 years, to be forgettable. At 80, the proton pack still works. So does he. Bill Duke. 6'4", shaved head, a stare that could cut steel, and behind it, one of the most thoughtful minds in black cinema. They call Bill Duke the godfather of African-American film, and on February 26, 2026, Hollywood made it official. William Henry Duke Jr. was born February 26, 1943, in Poughkeepsie, New York. He earned degrees from Dutchess Community College and Boston University, a Master of Fine Arts from NYU's Tisch School of the Arts, then studied at the American Film Institute, after originally enrolling pre-med to please parents who wanted a doctor. His professional debut came in the 1971 Broadway musical Ain't Supposed to Die a Natural Death, whose opening night cast included a young Garrett Morris. Audiences met him properly facing down Arnold Schwarzenegger in Commando in 1985, then Predator in 1987. But his deepest impact came behind the camera. He directed A Rage in Harlem, Deep Cover, Sister Act 2, and Hoodlum, and his documentaries Dark Girls and Light Girls forced a national conversation about colorism. Bill Clinton appointed him to the National Endowment for the Humanities. Schwarzenegger later appointed him to the California Film Commission. On his 83rd birthday, during Black History Month, Duke received the 2,837th star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Glynn Turman spoke. Garrett Morris came. Dr. Dre showed up. Rather than lie down on the sidewalk as tradition dictates, Duke sat beside his star in a walker and dedicated it to his parents, saying it belonged to them as much as to him, an ongoing legacy his daughter, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren could visit long after he's gone. 55 years after that Broadway debut, the men who started beside him were still standing there with him. Garrett Morris. Imagine being the only black face in the room while television comedy is reinvented around you. Then imagine outliving the experiment. That was Garrett Morris, and at 89 he is still cracking jokes. Born February 1, 1937 in New Orleans, and raised by a grandfather who preached Southern Baptist sermons. He sang in the church choir from 5. He earned a Bachelor of Music from Dillard University in 1958 and trained at Juilliard. Extraordinary classical credentials for a man about to become a sketch comic. Before fame, he taught at New York's PS 71 and performed on Broadway in Porgy and Bess. When Saturday Night Live premiered on October 11, 1975, Morris was 38, older than Chevy Chase, John Belushi, and Dan Aykroyd, and the show's only black cast member, a position he has called both isolating and historically pivotal. His creations endure: Chico Escuela, the Dominican ballplayer, and the News for the Hard of Hearing sketches, where he screamed headlines across Weekend Update. Here's a detail usually mangled. In a 1979 SNL sketch, Morris played Ant-Man, arguably making him the first black actor to portray a Marvel superhero on screen, which the 2015 film quietly acknowledged. In 1994, a robbery left him shot and nearly killed him. He survived, then rebuilt The Jamie Foxx Show, and 138 episodes of Two Broke Girls as Earl. In 2025, at 88, he finally received his own Walk of Fame star, and in February 2026, he showed up to celebrate Bill Duke getting his. 50 years after he was the only black man in that studio, he is still here, still working, and still watching his friends get their flowers. Some victories only count if you live long enough to see them. Ben Vereen. Triple threat is a phrase Hollywood wastes on everyone. Ben Vereen is what it was invented to describe, and at 79, after losses that would have ended most people, he is still finding the light. Born Benjamin Augustus Middleton on October 10, 1946, in Laurinburg, North Carolina, he didn't learn he was adopted until 25, when he applied for a passport. Raised in Bedford-Stuyvesant by a paint factory worker and a maid, he knew from age 5, after seeing Sammy Davis Jr. on television, precisely what he would become. He trained at Manhattan's High School of Performing Arts, the school that inspired fame, under Martha Graham and Jerome Robbins. Broadway broke him open in 1972 with Jesus Christ Superstar. The next year he won the Tony for Pippin, originating the leading player under Bob Fosse. Then Roots in 1977, the most watched miniseries in American history, drawing 130 million viewers, where his Chicken George earned an Emmy nomination. The tragedies came anyway. In 1987, his daughter Naja, 16, was killed by a drunk driver. In 1992, after crashing his own car into a tree, Vereen was struck while walking along a California highway by a vehicle driven by producer David Foster, who stopped to help him and was never charged. Vereen woke from a coma with multiple broken bones and doctors saying he'd never walk again. He proved them wrong. Diagnosed with type 2 diabetes in 2007, he still tours one-man cabaret shows at 79 and remains godfather to Usher, a man who lost a daughter, lost his ability to walk, and lost the future doctors promised him, and answered all three by getting back on a stage. That's resilience as a profession. Glynn Turman. If you don't instantly recognize the name, that's precisely the point and the achievement. While flashier stars chased blockbusters, Glynn Turman spent 6 decades quietly assembling one of the most respected bodies of work in American acting. And at 79, he is busier than ever. Born January 31st, 1947 in New York City, he was pushed onto Broadway at 13, playing Travis Younger in the original 1959 production of A Raisin in the Sun, sharing that stage with Sidney Poitier and Ruby Dee. It was an education no drama school could match, and it set the terms of everything after. Craft over hype. His defining film came in 1975 with Cooley High, playing Preach in a coming-of-age story about black teenagers in 1960s Chicago that became a cultural touchstone and directly inspired the sitcom What's Happening. He was reportedly considered for Han Solo in Star Wars before George Lucas concluded the industry wasn't ready for what that casting implied. From 1988 to 1993, he played Colonel Bradford Taylor on A Different World. He married Aretha Franklin in 1978. They divorced in 1984, but stayed close until her death in 2018. His renaissance arrived with HBO's The Wire as Mayor Clarence Royce. And in 2008, he won an Emmy for In Treatment. Then came Ma Rainey's Black Bottom in 2020, opposite Chadwick Boseman and Viola Davis, and a Screen Actors Guild Award. He received his own Walk of Fame star in 2024. And in February 2026, he stood up and spoke at Bill Duke's ceremony, one legend vouching for another. Craft, it turns out, ages better than hype ever could. Joe Morton. Joe Morton has pulled off something almost no actor manages. He has been an indie cult hero, a science fiction icon, and one of television's greatest villains, and made each feel like the role he was born for. Born Joseph Thomas Morton Jr. on October 18, 1947 in Harlem, he was the son of a U.S. Army intelligence officer, and parts of his childhood unfolded in West Germany and Okinawa. His father died when he was 10. He studied drama at Hofstra, debuted on Broadway in Hair, then earned a Tony nomination in 1974 for Raisin. His breakthrough was John Sayles' 1984 cult classic, The Brother from Another Planet, where he played a mute alien fugitive, an entire lead performance delivered without a single line of dialogue, and critics were stunned. He made 2 more Sayles films, City of Hope and Lone Star. In 1991, he played Miles Dyson in Terminator 2, Judgment Day, the doomed scientist whose research triggers the apocalypse, arguably the film's moral center. He was Captain McMahon in Speed and the FBI chief in American Gangster. But his defining moment came in 2012, when Shonda Rhimes cast him as Eli Pope on Scandal, Olivia Pope's terrifying father, whose monologues became viral television events and won him the 2014 Primetime Emmy for Outstanding Guest Actor in a Drama Series. He's also Silas Stone, Cyborg's father, across the DC Extended Universe. At 78, the intensity hasn't dimmed by a single degree. Consider the range. A man who once held an entire film without speaking a word, and later delivered the most quoted monologues on network television. Almost nobody in American acting has covered that much ground, and he did it while everyone was busy watching someone else. Fred Williamson. Very few people in American life get one legendary career. Fred Williamson built 2, and at 88 he is still making movies and still running his own company. Born Frederick Robert Williamson on March 5, 1938 in Gary, Indiana, he graduated from Northwestern in 1960 with a degree in architectural engineering. The action star is, literally, an engineer. He earned the nickname, the Hammer, for the ferocity of his hits as a defensive back, playing first for the Pittsburgh Steelers in the NFL, before moving to the AFL with the Oakland Raiders and Kansas City Chiefs. He was All-Pro 4 times and played in Super Bowl I. When he retired in 1968, Hollywood was suddenly hungry for athletic black men who could carry the emerging blaxploitation wave, and Williamson delivered. Hammer in 1972, Black Caesar in 1973, Three the Hard Way in 1974, alongside Jim Brown and Jim Kelly. He became the genre's coolest figure. Then he did what almost no black actor of his era dared. He founded his own production company. Po' Boy Productions launched in 1974 and has produced more than 40 films, letting him write, direct, and star in pictures no studio would touch. His 3 rules are legendary and only half a joke. He can't be killed, he wins all his fights, and he gets the girl if he wants her. In 1996, Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino cast him in From Dusk Till Dawn as a love letter to that era. Over 150 films later, he's still working, still producing. He is 88 and has spent nearly 60 years making certain the man on screen was a man he approved. 2 legendary careers, and not a single frame he didn't choose. Charles S. Dutton. Few stories in Hollywood are as improbable as this one, and the facts deserve stating precisely, because they're almost always reported wrong. Charles Stanley Dutton was born January 30, 1951 in Baltimore into deep poverty. At 17, he killed a man in a street fight and was convicted of manslaughter, not murder. and sentenced to 7 years. That distinction matters. Inside, he organized a drama group and fell in love with theater. After an additional sentence for possessing a weapon, he was paroled in 1976. He earned his GED, attended Towson State, then did something almost unimaginable. He was accepted into the Yale School of Drama's graduate acting program, sharing classrooms with Angela Bassett and Courtney B. Vance. His Broadway debut in August Wilson's Ma Rainey's Black Bottom in 1984 earned a Tony nomination, followed by 2 more. He then starred in his own Fox sitcom, Rock, from 1991 to 1994, playing a Baltimore garbage collector, a show notable for performing entire episodes live. His film work spans Alien 3, Rudy, A Time to Kill, and Get on the Bus. He won a Primetime Emmy in 2000 for directing HBO's searing Baltimore miniseries The Corner, then acting Emmys in 2002 for The Practice and 2003 for CBS's Without a Trace. 3 Emmys, as both actor and director. At 75, Charles S. Dutton's existence is the argument every prison reform advocate reaches for. A boy convicted at 17 who became a Yale-trained artist and never once hid where he came from. Most people get 1 life. He built a second from inside a cell, out of nothing but a prison drama group, and a decision that the first wasn't going to be the whole story. Avery Brooks. When Star Trek Deep Space Nine premiered in 1993, television crossed a line it had never crossed. A black man would lead a Star Trek series. The man chosen to carry that weight was a Shakespearean actor, jazz pianist, and scholar, unlike anyone Hollywood had produced. Avery Franklin Brooks was born October 2, 1948, in Evansville, Indiana, into a deeply musical family. His grandfather toured as a tenor with the Delta Rhythm Boys in the 1930s. Brooks studied at Indiana University, transferred to Oberlin, then earned his Master of Fine Arts from Rutgers, becoming the first African-American MFA graduate in that institution's history. He later joined the Rutgers faculty and taught theater there for decades, a working professor who happened to be a television star. His breakthrough came as Hawk in ABC's Spencer for Hire from 1985 to 1988. The baritone, the shaved head, and the stillness made him instantly iconic. He also portrayed Paul Robeson on stage and sang the lead in Anthony Davis's opera X. But Deep Space Nine was his masterpiece. Across 7 seasons and 173 episodes, Captain Benjamin Sisko evolved from grieving widower to wartime commander to religious icon, and Brooks personally fought the producers to ensure the finale ended in reunion rather than tragedy. He directed 9 episodes himself. He performed at Gordon Parks's funeral and read at Ossie Davis's memorial. At 77, he keeps an extraordinarily low public profile, letting the work speak, which, given the work, it does. He never chased the spotlight. He simply left behind something too large to overlook, a captain's chair that never looked the same again, and a generation of black kids who finally saw a Star Trek lead who looked like them. James Pickens Jr. 20 seasons, hundreds of episodes, 1 character, built into television's most reliable father figure. At 71, James Pickens Jr. is the youngest man here, and the one who spent last November fighting for his life. Born October 26, 1954 in Cleveland, he found theater at Karamu House, the oldest African-American theater in the United States, and earned his Bachelor of Fine Arts from Bowling Green State in 1976. In 1981, he performed in the Negro Ensemble Company's historic production of A Soldier's Play, sharing that stage with 2 unknowns named Denzel Washington and Samuel L. Jackson. The 1990s brought steady, unglamorous work: Roseanne, Nipit Blue, 6 Feet Under, and The X-Files as Deputy Director Alvin Kirsch. He appeared in Menace to Society, Dead Presidents, and Oliver Stone's Nixon. Then, in 2005, Shonda Rhimes cast him as Dr. Richard Webber on Grey's Anatomy, and he has anchored the show through every reinvention since. Webber's alcoholism, his mentorship, and now an early-onset Alzheimer's storyline, giving Pickens some of the most layered material on television. In November 2025, he announced he had been diagnosed with prostate cancer, the same disease that struck his father and his uncles. and he went public specifically to push other black men toward screening. Days after treatment, he posted that he was blessed, grateful, and cancer-free. Off-screen, he's a champion roper who runs a foundation supporting underserved families. There is a quiet symmetry that's hard to miss. For 20 years, he has played the man everyone at that hospital turns to when things fall apart. And then, at 71, he became that man in real life, for an audience of millions, by naming a diagnosis most men his age refuse to mention. Tim Reed. Long before Blackish or Atlanta, Tim Reed was quietly building the kind of black television that insisted on intelligence and dignity. Then he built the infrastructure to make more of it. At 81, his legacy stretches far past what most viewers realize. Timothy Lee Reed was born December 19, 1944, in Norfolk, Virginia. He earned a business administration degree from Norfolk State and went to work for DuPont in Chicago in the late 1960s, doing comedy on the side. What that side project became was historic. Tim and Tom, with Tom Dreesen, one of the first interracial comedy duos in American show business, working nightclubs for 5 years and frequently facing openly hostile rooms. When the act ended, Reed turned to acting, and in 1978 became Gordon Venus Flytrap Sims, the jazz-loving DJ on CBS's Rookley in Cincinnati. He co-wrote an episode that earned a Humanitas Prize nomination for delivering an anti-drug message through a lesson on atomic structure. He followed with Simon & Simon, then in 1987 co-created and starred in Frank's Place, a New Orleans sitcom critics adored, and the network mishandled into cancellation after 1 season. It won an Emmy and a Peabody. From 1994 to 1999, he played Ray Campbell on Sister Sister. In 1997, he founded New Millennium Studios in Petersburg, Virginia, the first black-owned full-service production studio outside California. He didn't wait for a door to open. He built the building, with his own name on it, because 5 years of hostile nightclubs had taught him exactly how long waiting takes. At 81, the shows he made are studied, and the studio he founded is history. Venus Flytrap made him famous. What he did afterward made him important. Jimmy Walker. 3 syllables, 1 catchphrase, an entire cultural moment, and a career that outlasted every critic who said it couldn't. At 79, Jimmy Walker is still touring stand-up clubs across America. James Carter Walker Jr. was born June 25, 1947 in the Bronx. Poor enough that he didn't graduate high school on schedule. He entered the Sikh program at City College of New York and earned his GED. He worked as a vendor at Yankee Stadium, where Mickey Mantle once tipped him a silver dollar he kept for years. He started stand-up at New York's Improv, where Norman Lear spotted him. In 1974, Lear cast him as James J.J. Evans Jr. on CBS's Good Times, a Maude spin-off set in a Chicago housing project. J.J. was never meant to be the focus, but Walker's manic physicality and that exclamation, coined by director John Rich in a rehearsal, made him America's breakout star. Time named him Comedian of the Decade in 1975. Behind the scenes, tension boiled. Co-stars Esther Roll and John Amos objected to JJ's clownishness, believing it reinforced stereotypes, and Walker has said openly he was never friends with either off-camera. Afterward, he kept working. Airplane, Home Alone 2, endless game shows, and, remarkably, hired then-unknown writers named David Letterman, Jay Leno, Byron Allen, and Louis Anderson. And here's the detail that reframes everything. The man critics dismissed as a cartoon spent his own money employing 4 comedians who would reshape American television. Whatever anyone thought of JJ, Jimmy Walker's real legacy was written into other people's careers. Occasionally controversial, permanently unapologetic, he is still out there, still working, still refusing to be a punchline in someone else's story. 18 legends, 18 lifetimes of brilliance, struggle, and sheer refusal to fade. But this list began with 19 names. Hal Williams, Smitty on Sanford and Son, Lester Jenkins on 227, died on July 15, 2026, 1 day before we finished writing. He was still taking roles. That's exactly the point. So here's the question burning in our minds. Which of these 18 deserves a Lifetime Achievement Oscar before it's too late? Morgan Freeman has his. Samuel L. Jackson got an honorary one in 2022. But what about Danny Glover, Bill Duke? The Academy keeps waiting, and we keep losing them. Drop your pick below. Subscribe to Secret Celebrity Stories, where legends get their flowers while they can still smell them.